Anderson Cooper 360 is supported by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage's completely online process lets you get a custom mortgage solution wherever and whenever you want. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/AC360.
And good evening. Donald Trump tonight in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the second stop on his thank you tour, what he is billing as a thank you tour. He has been running late. He's just stepped on stage and is about to begin speaking. Let's listen in.
Thank you. So the weather was really bad. Really bad. And they said, you know, these are great people in North Carolina. They won't mind. No, but they said they won't mind, sir, if you canceled and made it another time. And I said, what? And they said, we have a big crowd, but they won't mind just because the weather was so terrible. So I said, you got to be kidding. So we've been driving for 2 hours. We landed at like a long ways, but there was no way that we weren't showing up tonight. That I can tell you. That I can tell you. Yeah, we couldn't land at your local airport. We landed a long ways away. I said, boy, let's put it this way. The drive was about 3 times longer than the flight. But we made it. That's all that matters, right? We made it. And I'm here today for one main reason, to thank you, the people of North Carolina, for being so incredible. We want to thank you. You went out and pounded the pavement. You organized your fellow citizens and propelled to victory a grassroots movement, the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. And that's beyond our country. And I want to give a special thank you to the incredible military families, service members, and veterans of North Carolina. And they were great. You saw what happened with the military. I got such numbers. Oh, those numbers are good. We don't talk about numbers. We bring people together. But boy, were those numbers good. And our veterans, do we love our veterans? We love our veterans. But your state's legacy of service is an inspiration to us all. North Carolina has produced many of the finest soldiers, airmen, sailors, and Marines the world has ever seen. So true. Our men and women in uniform represent the absolute best of us. We must follow their example, working in unison toward a shared goal across every social, racial, and economic line. They understand that to accomplish the mission, we must all be pulling in the same direction. We have to get together. They know that we must leave no man or woman behind. These patriots have shed their blood to defend our country in distant fields of battle across the earth. Our debt to them is eternal and everlasting. Amazing people. Amazing people. And you know, we have a very special person here tonight who we're going to introduce very shortly. Boy, it's been such a popular choice. We salute their sacrifice and we salute the flag they fought to protect. We love our flag, right? We love our flag. We love our flag, and we don't like it when we see people ripping up our flag and burning our flag. We don't like it. We don't like it. And we'll see what we're going to do about that, okay? We're going to see. Tomorrow is the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. It's a milestone that marks the ultimate sacrifice of those who wear the great uniform. It's a reminder, too, of the valiant efforts of America's fighting men and women who have liberated millions from tyranny and oppression. Now today, our brave men and women are the first in line defense against radical Islamic terrorism, words that some people don't like to say, an ideology of death that slaughters innocent men, women, and children. We're going to protect our people. We're going to protect our country, believe me. In every generation, a new threat to freedom arises. And just as we defeated these threats, we faced generations in the past, and you understand that, so too will we defeat the forces of terrorism. It's unseen in many cases, but we're going to defeat that force, and we're going to defeat it strongly and quickly. Believe me. We will prevail. We stand here today just miles from Fort Bragg, the home of heroes. It's a home of heroes. Our special forces at Fort Bragg have been the tip of the spear in fighting terrorism. The motto of our Army Special Forces is to free the oppressed. And that is exactly what they have been doing and will continue to do. At this very moment, soldiers from Fort Bragg are deployed in 90 countries around the world. Can you believe that? 90 countries. Based in Fort Bragg is the 82nd Airborne Division, also known as the All-American Division. We stand in awe of their achievements. We really do. Not far from here sits 45% of the entire United States Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune. I've been to Camp Lejeune. We love Camp Lejeune. 12,000 citizen soldiers fill the ranks of the North Carolina Army and Air National Guard. The National Guard rushed to the scene to help the victims of Hurricane Matthew and so many other catastrophes. And we continue to send our thoughts and prayers to those recovering in its wake. The military families in North Carolina are a national treasure, and it will be the duty of my administration to ensure that we protect those who protect us. And I just want to tell you that we are going to be taking care of our veterans. And I'm right now working. These are great, great people. And they haven't been treated fairly. And I'm right now working on picking the people that are going to be helping our veterans, and they are really outstanding. We have some of the great people, and a lot of people that are making great sacrifices to do this. But they're going to be unbelievable. You're going to see such a change. You're going to see such a change like you've never seen before. We're going to protect and help our veterans, believe me. That brings me to the second reason that I'm here, to discuss our action plan to make America great again, beginning with the rebuilding of our military. And we will. You're going to see it. I'm so looking forward, probably next week, you're going to see what we're going to do to take care of our vets. It's going to be announced. A lot of things are going to be announced. Stay tuned, folks. Here are the priorities that will guide our military and veterans policy. All men and women in uniform will have the supplies, support, equipment, training, services, medical care, and resources they need to get the job done incredibly well and perfectly. You watch. The best care in the world for our veterans, both at public and VA facilities, as well as the right to see a private doctor when the lines are long. I've been saying this for the last year and a half. You know, people are waiting in line for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. Longer. He just said longer. Longer than that. And when that happens, you're going out to see a private doctor, a private hospital, a public hospital, somebody that can take care of you, and we're going to pick up the bill. And it's going to be, not only is it going to be great for you and life-saving in many cases, it's going to be less expensive. And I'm saying, why didn't they do this in the past? Why didn't somebody do this? There's not going to be any more waiting for our great people online for weeks to see a doctor. And finally, a commitment to only engage the use of military forces when it's in the vital national security interests of the United States. We don't want to have a depleted military because we're all over the place fighting in areas that just we shouldn't be fighting in. We're going to have such a strong, powerful military. It's not going to be depleted any longer. I mentioned equipment previously, and I said equipment. We're going to have the finest equipment in the world. It's going to be new. It's going to be modern. It's going to be clean. It's going to be the best. That's what we're going to have. We're not going to be a depleted military anymore. From now on, it's going to be America first. America first. We will stop racing to topple foreign, and you understand this, foreign regimes that we know nothing about, that we shouldn't be involved with. Instead, our focus must be on defeating terrorism and destroying ISIS. And we will. Any nation that shares these goals will be our partner in this mission. We won't forget it. We want to strengthen old friendships and seek out new friendships. Rather than a rigid dogma, we're guided by the lessons of history and a desire to promote stability all over, and strength in our land. This destructive cycle of intervention and chaos must finally, folks, come to an end. Come to an end. We've spent, at last count, $6 trillion in the Middle East. And our roads have potholes all over. Our highways are falling apart. Our bridges are falling. Our tunnels are no good. Our airports are horrible, like third world countries. We got to start spending on ourselves. But we've got to be so strong militarily, like we've never, ever been before. Remember that. Like we've never been before. We seek harmony and goodwill among the nations of the world. And we believe that respect for mutual sovereignty helps form the basis of trust and understanding. But we don't want people taking advantage of us anymore. We don't want countries taking advantage of us anymore. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want to be the smart people. We don't want to be what we've been over the last long period of time. We build up our military not as an act of aggression, but as an act of prevention. We pursue and build up arms not in order to seek conflict, but in order to avoid conflict. We want to be strong. In short, we seek peace through strength. That is why in my first budget report to Congress, I am going to ask for the elimination of the defense sequester. It's enough. Depletion, I call it depletion. Gets worse and worse every year, not for our military. We will show the world that America is going to be strong again, stronger than ever before. We're going to be stronger militarily than ever before. And hopefully we don't have to use our military. But we're going to be stronger than ever before. And there's rarely been a time when we've needed this strength more than we have right now. But in order to succeed with our defense policy, we must find the right person to lead our Defense Department. Is that right? This is why I'm proud to formally announce today my intention to nominate General James Mad Dog Mattis as the next Secretary of Defense for the United States of America. Jim is a Marine Corps four-star general, the former commander of U.S. Central Command and NATO's Supreme Allied Commander. For transformation, this is going to be so great for us. He led an assault battalion in Operation Desert Storm, and you saw what that happened. What happened, that was the way you're supposed to lead it. There was no games. Mad Dog plays no games, right? Led the forces that went after the Taliban and commanded the 1st Marine Division in Iraq. He is one of the most effective generals that we've had in many, many decades. An extraordinary leader of our time who has committed his life to his love for our country. General Mattis is the living embodiment of the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. And the American people are fortunate that a man of this character and integrity will now be the civilian leader atop the Department of Defense. Under his leadership, right? Under his leadership, such an important position, we will rebuild our military and alliances, destroy terrorists, face our enemies head on, and make America safe again. It is now my honor and privilege to welcome to the stage your next Secretary of Defense, General Mad Dog Mattis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, President-elect, for the confidence that you have shown in me. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to return to our troops, their families, the civilians of the Department of Defense, because I know how committed they are and devoted they are to the defense of our country, the defense of our Constitution. And with our allies strengthened, with our country strengthened, I look forward to being the civilian leader so long as the Congress gives me the waiver and the Senate votes to consent. Thank you very much.
What a great guy. He's going to be incredible. He'll get that waiver, right? He's going to get that. Oh, if he didn't get that waiver, there'll be a lot of angry people. Such a popular choice. I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the all-time great cabinets that has ever been assembled in our nation's history. We have some great people going to be named over the next couple of days, too. But to accomplish our goals, we must reject the failed approaches of the past. We must move past the tired conventional thinking of Washington, D.C. As Abraham Lincoln said, as our case is new, so must we think anew and act anew. My plan begins with bold structural reform to create millions of good-paying jobs and even great-paying jobs. You've been seeing what's been happening over the last couple of weeks. And we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet. We were very proud of saving 1,100 jobs in Indiana with the help of Mike Pence, Vice President-elect, who's incredible. We're very proud of Mike Pence, by the way. Whether it's producing steel, building cars, or curing disease, we want the next generation of innovation and production to happen right here in America and right here in North Carolina. And don't forget, when we started, even 4 weeks before, they said, well, we're going to have an awfully hard time winning Florida, an awfully hard time winning North Carolina. We're not going to win Pennsylvania. We're not going to win Michigan. We're not going to win Wisconsin. We're not going to win Iowa. And Ohio's going to be tough. So it started out, we won Ohio by more than 8 points. We won Iowa by a massive number, 10 points. Then we went down and we won Florida. Remember that fantastic evening? We have breaking news. Donald Trump wins Florida. Donald Trump wins North Carolina. We won so many states. We won 30 states, 32 states. We won so much, and we just kept winning. And then we topped it off by winning Pennsylvania, winning Michigan, winning, right? Winning Wisconsin. States that hadn't been won in 38 years, a lot of states. And it was a fantastic evening, and that's why we're here tonight, because we want to thank you. We want to thank you, especially. First, on taxes. We're going to undertake one of the great tax reforms and simplifications in American history. This includes lowering the tax rate on business from 35% all the way down to 15%. And massive tax cuts, by the way, for middle-class workers. Massive. The biggest. Biggest since Reagan, actually bigger than Reagan. On regulations, we're going to eliminate every single wasteful regulation that undermines the ability of our workers and our companies to compete. The regulation business is a disaster in our country. We're going to get rid of all of the unnecessary regulations. On energy, we will cancel the job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy and pursue American energy independence, and we'll be able to do it. Honoring the legacy of Theodore Roosevelt, believe it or not, one of our great environmentalists, we will also conserve and protect our beautiful natural resources for the next generation, including protecting lands and anglers and hunters and all of those who enjoy the outdoors, like my sons, Don and Eric. They enjoy the outdoors. They enjoy it. They love it. On infrastructure, I will ask Congress to pass legislation that produces $1 trillion of new investments in America's crumbling infrastructure, including major projects in our inner cities. We're going to take care of our inner cities. We're going to get the inner cities going again. Remember, I used the expression, what the hell do you have to lose? I'm telling you, you're going to see. And I want to thank, we did so well, so much better with African-American communities, with Hispanic communities than anybody ever anticipated. So much better. Better than has taken place in years back. So I want to thank the African-American communities. I want to thank the Hispanic communities. And we're starting to work already. We're working already. And the appointment today of Ben Carson has been very popular, very well received. Dr. Ben Carson. Good guy. Great guy. We will have two simple rules when it comes to rebuilding this country. Buy American and hire American. All right? Buy American. On trade, our trade deficit, now nearly $800 billion a year. We have a deficit, think of it, of almost $800 billion a year. You really say, who's negotiating these deals? Is a chronic drag on the growth and a destroyer of jobs and wealth in our country. In the month of October alone, our nation racked up more than $40 billion in trade deficit. $40 billion, including more than a $30 billion trade deficit with China alone. All right? Think we're doing a good job in negotiating? I don't think so. How many business people do we have in this audience that could have done a slightly better job of negotiating, right? Yeah, you can. North Carolina has lost nearly half of its manufacturing jobs since NAFTA. America has lost 70,000 factories. Think of it, 70,000 factories since joining the World Trade Organization. Or think of it. So China joins the World Trade Organization, and since that time, we've lost so much, 70,000 factories. We're living through the greatest jobs theft in the history of the world. There's never been a jobs theft like what's happened to this country. And we stopped some of it a little bit because we just started, but we haven't really started because we don't really start till January 20th, but we're stopping. And one of the wealthiest men in the world, you saw it today, maybe, did anybody see it? Masa, right? Masa, great guy of Japan. He's pledged that he's going to put $50 billion into the United States because of our victory. He wasn't investing in our country. 50 billion. 50,000 jobs. 50,000 jobs he's going to be investing in. He's a great guy. A Trump administration will renegotiate our terrible trade deals, stand up to foreign cheating, and defeat every last American. And we will do this. We will defeat the enemy on jobs, and we will defend American jobs. We're going to defend American jobs. And we have to look at it almost as a war, because that's what's happened to us. That's what's happened to our workers. These are great people. And boy, did they come out to vote. Remember they said they don't exist? They existed. They existed. Believe me, in millions and millions of people poured out to the voting booths, and they voted. Big league. That's why we had these kind of victories. We had states where we would win by 30 points, 35 points, 40 points. Amazing. And if a company wants to fire their workers, leave our country, and then ship their products back into our country, there will be consequences. I'm sorry. There will be consequences. Big consequences. On health care reform, every day, the law known as Obamacare is destabilizing our health care, really destabilizing it, surging premiums and forcing providers out of the market. If we don't act, the damage will be irreversible. We're going to act. That is why we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. So we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, and you're going to get health care at a much lower price with a much lower deductible. It's so high now, you really can't, and for the most part, you can't use it. But we are going to have great health care at a much lower price. On child care, I'm asking Congress to pass legislation to make safe and affordable child care accessible to all, and people like that. That's something that Ivanka Trump, did anybody ever hear of Ivanka Trump, right? Ivanka Trump has been fighting for a long time, and I have, and I agree with her. On crime, the murder rate has experienced its largest increase in 45 years. We are going to support the incredible men and women of law enforcement, and we are going to bring this terrible crime wave to an end. Highest in 45 years, the murder rate. On immigration, we will be the administration that ended illegal immigration. We will construct a great border wall, dismantle the criminal cartels, liberate our communities from the epidemic of gang violence and drugs. We will get rid of the drugs that are pouring into our country. We will ask Congress to reform our visa and immigration programs to protect jobs and wages for American workers. And we will be appointing very shortly somebody to head up our program. And I will tell you, this person, like General Mattis, will do a phenomenal job, because we're going to stop people from coming into our country illegally, but we're going to have people come into our country, and they're going to come in by the thousands and the hundreds of thousands, but they're going to come in, they are going to come in legally, right? But by the hundreds of thousands. We want people to come in, but they have to come in legally. To protect our country from terrorism and extremism, we will suspend immigration from regions where it cannot be safely processed. Right now, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are pouring into our country. We have no idea who they are, where they come from, do they love us? In a lot of cases, no, they don't love us. A Trump administration will always put the safety and security of the American people first. Okay, remember that. Safety of the American people. Ethics reform will be a crucial part of our 100-day plan as well. We're going to drain the swamp of corruption in Washington, D.C. We're going to. I will impose a 5-year ban on executive branch officials becoming lobbyists and a lifetime ban on officials becoming lobbyists for a foreign government. We face many, many challenges, but this is truly an exciting time to be alive in our country, and hopefully to be alive in many other locations, because we are representative to a large extent of what's happening in the world. The world is looking up to us, but they haven't been looking up to us much. And they are going to start looking up again. We're going to be good for the world, not just good for our country. The script to what we're doing is not yet written. Remember, this has been a great, great movement, the likes of which they've never seen before. The likes of which those folks back there that write the stories, no, I'll tell you. And they're saying it. They've never seen anything like this before. It's one of the great political phenomena of all time. And we're going to show them. We're going to do a great job. We're going to create a safe country. We're going to create a prosperous country. We're going to have jobs again, great jobs, not bad jobs, real jobs. And it's going to be something special. And hopefully they're going to write the truth. We do not know what the page tomorrow will read. But for the first time in a long time, what we do know is that the pages will be authored by each and every one in this room and in our country, by you. It's going to be authored by you. Together, we will raise incomes and create millions and millions of new jobs. That's going to happen. It's already happening. You see what happened today. We will reestablish the rule of law and defend the Constitution of the United States. And by the way, we will be appointing great, great Supreme Court justices, you see. We'll be starting very soon with one to replace Justice Scalia. Great man. We will protect the right of every American to live in safety and peace. We will restore and respect, and we will respect people's rights. We will respect constitutional rights. And for all America, we will respect our great American flag again, believe me. We will heal our divisions and unify our country. When Americans are unified, there is nothing we cannot do. Nothing. No task is too great, no dream too large, no goal beyond our reach. My message tonight is for all Americans from all parties, all beliefs, all walks of life. It's a message for everyone. No matter your age, your income, your background, I'm asking you to join us in this great, great adventurous world that we're living in. We're going to make it less adventurous. We're going to make it safer and better than it's ever been before. I'm asking you to dream big again as Americans. I'm asking you to believe in yourself, to believe in your country, and to believe in your future. Because we've got a great future. What I've seen more than anything else is how great the future of our country is going to be. And if we do that, then all together we will make America strong again, stronger than ever before. We will make America rich again. A lot of people don't like the sound of that, but we need that to take care of our military, to take care of our veterans, to take care of all of the things that we have to. We're going to be a rich nation again. We're going to be a wealthy nation again. We're going to make America. We're going to make America, like it says on all of those caps, those millions and millions of caps that have been sold all over this country, and all of those signs. We are going to make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you, North Carolina. Thank you. We love you. God bless you, everybody. We'll be back soon. Thank you, North Carolina. Thank you.
You've been watching Donald Trump in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It is the second stop on what's being billed as his thank you tour. It started at least an hour and a half late because of some weather problems. As Donald Trump said at the top of his speech, it took him about 2 hours to actually drive to this location. Now, coming up at the top of the next hour in about 23 minutes from now, there's a CNN town hall hosted by Van Jones exploring how voters feel about Mr. Trump and the election. It's called The Messy Truth, and it gets underway shortly. Also going to be looking at what Democrats and Republicans do moving forward. But first, let's check in with our Jeff Zeleny, who is in Fayetteville, who has been listening to President-elect Trump. Jeff, second night, similar speech to what we heard the first time, and largely staying on prompter, but certainly a very receptive crowd in Fayetteville waiting for the president-elect.
A receptive crowd indeed, Anderson. Of course, North Carolina was in his victory column, and these people waited, several thousand people waited several hours to hear him. But Anderson, I was struck by the discipline in President-elect Trump's voice, and he said something that struck me at the end of his speech. He said, the script for what we're doing has not yet been written. And that is a very true statement that gives both delight and worry to some Republicans and, mostly worry to Democrats, but Republicans in particular, Anderson. The ones I've talked to on Capitol Hill are really wondering where he is going to go here. Just his first volley of proposals out of the gate indeed shows that he's going to break some of the rules. He is going to break some of the old conventions in Washington. So he also talked here a lot about veterans. Of course, we're in the neighborhood, really the backyard of Fort Bragg. And Donald Trump said he's going to have some big announcements on veterans policies coming next week. But he did not talk about Boeing at all. One thing that he started the day by criticizing Boeing, saying he was going to defend the American taxpayer, perhaps at the expense of Boeing. No mention of that tonight at all, Anderson. But definitely a road forward of where he's going. And now he will be doing these events in Iowa this week, in Louisiana, in Michigan, and in Ohio as well, doing these thank you tours. But then he will get back to work and still fill out his cabinet. Secretary of State, the leading position, I'm told will not come this week, but may come next week as he tries to get this all wrapped up by the Christmas holiday. Anderson?
Also interesting, Jeff, to see Donald Trump sharing the stage tonight with his selection for Secretary of Defense.
He did. He had retired General James Mattis on stage with him just briefly, and he said that, he still needs the waiver from Congress. And what he means by that is only a civilian can lead the Department of Defense. You have to be out of the military for 7 years. General Mattis has only been out for some 3 years. So he was very respectful in saying he needs Congress to give him the waiver. Now, Donald Trump, a little bit more brash. He said, oh, he'll get the waiver. Think what happens if he doesn't get the waiver. Now, most people believe he will, but Senator John McCain told our own Dana Bash today he believes this will be a difficult road here, and they will need Democratic votes on that. But General Mad Dog Mattis, as Donald Trump called him, was on stage with him briefly, and more importantly, he flew here with him, and they had a conversation, obviously, about the way forward for the Pentagon. Anderson.
All right, Jeff Nellany. Jeff, thanks very much in North Carolina. Tonight I want to bring in our panel, CNN political analyst and USA Today columnist Kirsten Powers, Trump supporter Kayleigh McEnany, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, CNN political director David Chalian, and CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona. Kirsten, you were watching this speech very carefully, listening. What stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is he seemed to stay on the teleprompter, and we didn't see what we saw at the last rally, which was him really spending a lot of time kind of looking back and criticizing the media and sort of going off script a little bit. It seemed like he, was trying to lay out a little bit of his foreign policy vision, perhaps in contrast to what President Obama did today, talking about peace through strength, which is obviously very Reagan-esque. Talking about how important it is to build, to take care of the military, take care of our veterans, build up the military. And I think one thing he understands, and having General Mattis there as well, is that the military is really the only institution in our country today that has a positive approval rating anymore. So I think he probably recognizes it's good for him to be surrounded by military people and to also be talking in a positive way about the military.
Kayleigh, to you.
I think to me what stood out is that President-elect Trump has a very tall order of goods to deliver going forward. He had just about everything from taxes to the military to the VA to foreign policy. And
Said military personnel, won't be waiting for days for a
Absolutely.
doctor. They can go to a private doctor. It's going to be cheaper. It is a laundry list of promises.
And these are hard things to deliver on. It's going to require work with Congress. But I think if you were someone who watched this election and you saw just the vitriol back and forth between Clinton and Trump, tonight was probably encouraging because you didn't see any of that. What you saw were something for everyone. If you're a business, you'll have a 15% low corporate tax rate. If you're someone waiting in the line at the VA, you're not going to have to do that any longer if he delivers. So I think if you're someone who's nervous about President-elect Trump, you watch tonight and you are encouraged.
Paul, during campaigns, politicians make a lot of promises, but Donald Trump is, continuing to promise an awful lot.
And I find that interesting. Now, to be fair, I've set two standards for his transitions: unite the country and staff his government. And actually, this speech did both. This is the first major Trump speech I've ever seen that he didn't have a villain. And good for him. It's not a time to divide Americans any longer. And this nominee, General Mattis, is being very well received. He will need 60 votes. Everybody else will need 50 because the waiver that Jeff reported on, but being very well received. So good for him. I think Kayleigh raises a third priority in the transition, which is manage expectations. Usually, we saw this with Barack Obama, saw it with Bill Clinton. New presidents come in, particularly if they're outsiders, running on change. And about this time is when they try to ease off on the afterburners. Like, whoa, this is going to take a long time. This is going to be difficult. He did not. Man, he is still in overdrive. But he's where he is because he is the salesman in chief. But if I were a Trump advisor, I would still worry that we are going to overpromise and underdeliver. And he really set the bar high. Believe me, my Democrats are recording every minute of this on videotape. And, if everything he says doesn't come through, it's going to look like a betrayal.
David Chalian, I was thinking back to State of the Union addresses where presidents sort of give a laundry list of pie-in-the-sky ideas. There was some of that really tonight, but it was sort of almost more than that.
Yeah, I think it was a preview of that first speech he's going to give. It's not a State of the Union the first year, but that first address to a joint session of Congress in February or so. I think we got a little bit of a preview of how that's going. You don't have to look for subtext. I mean, he said it straight out when he caught himself saying, starting to talk about poll numbers, and it's like, we're not talking about the numbers now. We're bringing the country together. I mean, clearly that was an instruction in his mind and an out loud reminder to himself of what the mission was here. I think he was totally focused on not trying to be divisive tonight.
Colonel Francona, in terms of the selection of General Mattis, what you've written very favorably of this, and I know for years you've been saying that the United States needs a sort of a wartime consigliere, I believe was the term you used.
Yeah, harkening back to The Godfather, I think General Mattis is probably a middle-of-the-road choice because he's got fans on both sides. I do believe that we need a stronger military bent in the Secretary of Defense. If you look at who we've had in the past, they tend to be managers and administrators. But what we really need right now is a leader. And we need somebody with wartime experience because we're facing some real problems. And if Mr. Trump is serious about revamping the military, re-strengthening the military. He's going to be somebody that can oversee that while at the same time prosecuting these wars in the Middle East. And I know that Mr. Obama today was talking about not being involved in wars in the Middle East, but we still have an uphill fight here. ISIS is not defeated yet. Syria is a mess, and we've got other outbreaks throughout North Africa and the rest of the region that need to be addressed. And I think General Mattis, with his experience and with his leadership abilities, is the right fit for that. So there's going to be friction between Mr. Trump and General Mattis because they don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. But I think General Mattis can bring the right counsel to bear to make the right decisions.
Let's play some of what the general had to say tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to return to our troops, their families, the civilians of the Department of Defense, because I know how committed they are and devoted they are to the defense of our country, the defense of our Constitution. And with our allies strengthened, with our country strengthened, I look forward to being the civilian leader so long as the Congress gives me the waiver and the Senate votes to consent. Thank you very much.
Also, wise not to try to, kind of out-talk the president-elect when you're sharing a stage with him. The whole, just for viewers who are wondering, the whole notion that somebody should be out of the military for 7 years, that basically goes to the whole notion of civilian oversight of the military.
Which is critical in our tradition. You know, when George Washington moved from being General Washington to President Washington, he was never again called general. He wanted to make sure that he set the precedent for civilian control of the military. This has happened once before. General Marshall of the Marshall Plan, who was one of the leading generals in the Second World War, was less than 7 years before he was put in as Pentagon chief. Congress gave him a waiver. I think that General Mattis and President, when he will be President Trump, will make a strong case for this come January. This is not where I would advise Democrats to draw the line and fight.
You would not advise Democrats to fight on Mattis?
No, I would not. I think where they're going to fight, where they might win, is on the Health and Human Services Secretary. Tom Price, the congressman from Georgia, has authored several bills to privatize Medicare. That's where the Democrats want to fight. They don't want to fight Mad Dog Mattis. They're going to want to fight Tom Price to save Medicare.
Should be very careful, though, because we've heard indications with every pick, oh, this isn't the right person. You know, we've heard it with Ben Carson. We've heard it with Jeff Sessions. And you're right, to pick this battle and make this your rallying cry, not allowing one of the most qualified people, I think, for Secretary of Defense probably to ever be nominated in, is just being a party of obstruction. We saw Republicans do that. It didn't work out too well 8 years ago. I wouldn't advise the Democrats to go down that route.
The other question about tonight is with the sort of the laundry list of promises, and there's something for everybody in there, is, of course, there's no detail about how are you going to pay for it. That's not what this speech is about tonight, certainly. That's not the kind of thing that would be brought up by any politician in this kind of a speech. But it does sort of begs the question of, infrastructure spending, veterans, there's not going to be any waits for seeing a doctor. I mean, these are massive institutions.
There are going to be price tags, hefty price tags, assigned to a lot of what he ticked through tonight. You're right. This is not the time for that. The scrutiny will come on that. There's no doubt about it. Though listening to him throughout the campaign and in this transition period, I don't sense President-elect Trump is all that concerned about deficit spending or growing the deficit. That hasn't been a rallying cry. So this is where we might see some tension between President-elect Trump and Paul Ryan and some more of the fiscal House conservatives on the Republican side.
Well, and not just fiscal reality, but just actual reality. Van Jones has pointed out many times that if you promise that you're going to bring back coal and you're going to expand fracking, you can't do both. One of the reasons coal is dying is because fracking has produced natural gas at abundant levels and very low prices, which has priced coal out of the competitive market. So you can't keep both of those promises because of the real world. It gets in the way.
We want to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break. And at the top of the hour, the CNN Live Town Hall, The Messy Truth, hosted by Van Jones. Stick around.
Anderson Cooper 360 is supported by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings home financing into the 21st century with a completely online process that's fast, easy, and convenient. Ditch the paperwork and use your phone or tablet to safely share your bank statements and pay stubs. In a few minutes, get a custom mortgage solution on your terms, wherever and whenever you want. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/AC360. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
We're now just a few minutes away from a CNN special town hall. You see the audience there talking to voters about Donald Trump and the election. The Messy Truth, hosted by Van Jones, gets underway at the top of the hour, about 7 minutes from now. We're talking now about Donald Trump's speech tonight in North Carolina, which some might say had a bit of poetry in it, along with the usual prose. Let's listen.
The script to what we're doing is not yet written. Remember, this has been a great, great movement, the likes of which they've never seen before. The likes of which those folks back there that write the stories, no, I'll tell you. And they're saying it. They've never seen anything like this before. It's one of the great political phenomena of all time. And we're going to show them. We're going to do a great job. We're going to create a safe country. We're going to create a prosperous country. We're going to have jobs again, great jobs, not bad jobs, real jobs. And it's going to be something special. And hopefully they're going to write the truth.
Echoing the words, I think, of T.E. Lawrence, who said nothing is written, back with the panel tonight. Colonel Francona, what did you make of Donald Trump's comments tonight? Certainly an entirely different sort of foreign doctrine than President Obama. At one point, he talked about, I want to make sure I get this right, we shouldn't be fighting foreign regimes that we know nothing about and shouldn't be involved with.
Yeah, I took that to be a direct reference to Syria because, as you know, we've got this bifurcated foreign policy in Syria. We want the overthrow of the Bashar al-Assad regime, and we also want to defeat ISIS. And the two things right now, given the situation on the ground in Syria, are diametrically opposed. And I think we're going to be reckoning for a new reckoning in Syria about what our foreign policy is going to be. And I fear that we may be backing off of the overthrow of the Bashar al-Assad regime and possibly getting in bed with the Russians and the Turks and everybody else to fight ISIS. So I think that that hasn't been resolved yet, but I think that's where it's going. And this is where General Mattis comes in, because I think most of the military people that were concerned about Donald Trump believe Mattis to be the voice of reason, and for that reason, I think Paul Begala's right. He'll get through the Senate.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Whoever he picks, we have General Mattis, but whoever he picks for Secretary of State, Donald Trump is the president and is going to be setting the foreign policy agenda that the Secretary of State will have to execute. But what President-elect says, or what a candidate says, is often different, or even what they set out as president hoping to have be their foreign policy or their lack of involvement in the world. They often get sucked into things. We've seen this time and again. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously terrible things can happen, like 9/11 happened, and that completely changed George Bush's view of the world and his view of foreign policy. But I think that what Trump was doing here was actually sort of taking a bipartisan slap. I think he was talking about the Bush administration and the Obama administration. I don't think he was just talking about Syria. I think he was talking about we need to stop the cycle of intervention. That's Libya, that's Iraq, that's Afghanistan. I think he's saying basically, he's setting out a pretty isolationist point of view. Well, America first. I mean, it echoes back to that idea.
He said all that intervention had led to chaos for years, and that he wants to completely cut off that cycle of chaos.
Well, the question, though, I mean, he's often referenced, Egypt as well, and the whole Arab Spring. The U.S. supported, Mubarak for decades in Egypt. Would a Trump administration support a strongman like Mubarak again?
During the campaign, he certainly indicated that he was in favor of some strongmen if it meant
Sort of
America not being
in
involved.
Egypt now.
But President Obama likes to say that reality has a way of intruding, and it does, and it will for this new president. But what I heard, kind of like Kirsten, is I'm sure Rick's right about Syria because that's the coming decision he'll have to make. But I heard echoes of Iraq, and he is still caught in this fight within his party between the Trump view, which is Iraq was a disaster, and the John Bolton view, who's apparently still on the very long list for Secretary of State. But some of the people he's looking at to entrust our national foreign policy to were very hawkish. Rudy Giuliani and John Bolton among them, very hawkish, very much beat the drums to go to war in Iraq, something that Trump believes was a disaster.
And that may be one of the most interesting things to look for in a Trump administration, because you're exactly right, the neoconservative, hawkish wing, and you very well might see people like Bolton working and serving in an administration that is, I wouldn't say isolationist, but very inward looking. America first, isn't going to be meddling, isn't going to be engaging in foreign policy adventurism, was opposed to drawing a line in Syria, but he said if he would have drawn it, he would have enforced it. And it's going to be fascinating to see people like perhaps John Bolton, subjecting his views to that of the president-elect, because I do think at the end of the day, the president-elect will be the one making the decision.
It is, though, so interesting. I mean, it's easy, again, when you're running to talk about drawing a line, but when you're the president and, images on the nightly news of people in Sarajevo being shot at crosswalks or Somalia at the height of the famine, there is that pull, to name just two things that the U.S. ended up getting involved with.
Right. Well, and when there's a crisis and you have to make a decision like you've never had to make before, and you have people coming in who have a lot more experience than you do and making arguments, to a certain extent, that's what happened with the Iraq War. You did have neoconservatives who came in and basically said, this is what we need to do. We need to, remake the Middle East. And there was a crisis, and the crisis had, a decision had to be made. So the question is, how sure is Donald Trump about what his worldview is? How sure is he that he doesn't want to be getting involved?
Who's been more sure than Barack Obama? He came in absolutely certain he wanted to unwind these disastrous Bush wars. They gave him the Nobel Peace Prize before he'd really done anything. And he has used drones and lethal force far more aggressively than George W. Bush ever has in the Middle East. It's been astonishing how reality has intruded on him as well.
And that's why you look at the people who surround the president, and that's where I think you're going to see General Mattis, by every indicator, playing a huge role in this administration. It's very clear that Mad Dog Mattis has gained the trust of the president-elect, and I suspect that he will have a very large voice along with General Flynn.
That's why I think that Secretary of State appointment now gets all that much more important, because you do have the Mattis piece now. You have Flynn, who's quite controversial, obviously, as the National Security Advisor. And that third leg of this stool that is going to be around the president to really help shape this is so critical. And it just seems from the long list that there's not a preferred course at the moment.
We're going to be hearing more from Donald Trump, obviously, in the days ahead, as this, what they're calling a thank you tour. The next stop is Des Moines. That's on this Thursday. He's to be speaking at 8 p.m. We'll obviously bring that to you live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thanks very much for watching. That does it for us. Time now for Van Jones and the Messy Truth.